Why couldn't the 11-year-old get into the pirate movie? Why? It was rated R.
A few weeks ago, we saw the release of the trailer for Sausage Party, and it was... If you haven't seen it yet, here's a brief rundown of everything you need to know. Vagina hot dog buns. Swears.
Fuck! Fucking fuck me.
Fucking shit, fuck.
And from the leaked script, food orgies. That's right, kids, food orgies. Pair up your favorite food items and mash them together! Ah! But all of these things feel like part of the inherent problem with recent rated R animation. They're trying too hard to be adult. A lot of current adult comedy seems to believe that what's adult are swear words, references, sex, being offensive, drugs, alcohol, and Michael Jordan. This is incredibly apparent in a lot of adult-focused shows and movies like Family Guy, American Pie, The Hangover, Trainwreck, Brickleberry, Super Jail, Border Town, 2.5 Men, Sit Down, Shut Up, and Ren and Stimpy, adult party cartoon. Couldn't even be subtle about that one, could you? And I'm not saying this is every case of adult animation. For example, Rick and Morty is typically based around character and situational humor. This exact same thing could be said about BoJack Horseman.
Oh, come on, character actress Margot Martindale.
And that's not to say that they don't take part in these conventions, but when they do, it's in a way that's either subtle or clever. Alcohol plays a humongous role in the world of Rick and Morty, with Rick being an alcoholic. And even though this tends to be played up for laughs, it's a major part of Rick's character, as he's a very self-destructive depressive that despite all of his intellect and strengths, hates his own existence to some extent.
Your grandfather is indeed in very deep pain. That is why he must numb himself.
BoJack fills a similar role as a drunkard, to the point of blacking out and causing mayhem. Sometimes I black out and do things I regret. But a lot of these shows end up going overboard with these ideas and concepts, to the point where the only ones who are watching them are kids in middle school and high school who think it's adult to watch these shows. I mean, come on. What scene adult do you know who really likes Family Guy? The guy with the Rip Bryan tattoo doesn't count! And the sad irony of marketing material towards adults that only appeals to kids and teens hasn't gone unnoticed. Take, for example, the South Park movie, bigger, longer, and uncut, an R-rated animated film that actually plays on this whole concept. Within the movie, they poke fun of the fact that most of this media appeals only to the lowest common denominator, which, in all honesty, is children.
What garbage?
Cue the,
Excuse me, I'm 9 years old and I watch UPA animation. Not any of this American Dad stuff anyone else my age watches. They just don't know good animation.
I get it. You're a special snowflake. Now run up and ask Snowflake Jake for your bag of spices. But if this problem has been noticed since 1999, why does this still happen, especially in animation? Although Sausage Party is the one everyone's talking about, not too long ago, a film by the name of Hell in Black, Hell in Back, released back in 2015. Despite that the animation is unique and different, the fact that it's all stop motion, the humor does nothing to back this up. Rather, we just see an overabundance of swear words and sexually based jokes.
Oh yeah, slutty angel.
She's on the wrong side of 40.
Hell in Back was panned by audiences and critics alike. The film only grossed about $157,000 with a budget that, despite scouring everywhere on the internet, I couldn't seem to find, but comparing to another stop-motion film like The Nightmare Before Christmas, which had a budget of $18 million, yeah, this movie was a bigger flop than my Over the Garden Wall video. And possibly this was partially due to the adult stigma about animation, how it's only made for kids, but when your film is only going to appeal to children because your movie says shit or fuck, then you put that movie behind an R-rated barrier with most parents being sane enough not to take their 6th grader to go see a film like this, yeah, you're just setting yourself up for failure. And this is obviously just a setback for animation in general. Western animation rarely sees films released in theaters that are aimed solely at adults. When one comes out that's just bad from both a writing and financial standpoint, the stereotype established by Disney that animation is made for kids is allowed to perpetuate. You don't see change, you just see stagnation. But how do we avoid this stagnation? Well, obviously by not making crap, but how do we avoid making garbage? One of the problems that a lot of these adult shows and films have is they're taking too broad of a lens at what it means to be adult. They're attempting to appeal to such a broad audience, rather than attempting to appeal to a niche or groups within said collective. Disney, in all of their capacity, typically attempts to aim towards children as a large demographic. And that's honestly not a hard demographic to hit. Children are honestly kind of blank slates in their influences, but their films are ones that tend to appeal to adults as well. Go to any grown adult on the street and ask them what their favorite Disney film is. Unless they're a humongous Marvel fanboy, they're likely to tell you something like Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, any Pixar property, or heck, even Frozone.
I crush on Ariel, so I thought she was really hot. I like redheads.
But why? Why do these films appeal to adults? Obviously, nostalgia has a part in it all. I don't really think people would love Lion King as much had they not watched it as kids. It's a good film with a lot of great songs, but has a comparatively weaker second half compared to the first, and Timon and Pumbaa are kind of unbearable. It's nothing most adults would freak out over in the way people freak out about Mad Max or Star Wars, despite how well it initially did in the box office, and how well it continues to do anytime Disney lets out of the vault for a breath of fresh air. But nostalgia can only be a part of it.
I thought she was really hot, I like redheads.
But then we look at Frozen, which honestly hasn't had enough time to become nostalgic, despite anything Doug Walker might say. And it's clear to see how much this film has exploded in its popularity.
Oh my god, yes, yes!
So what could it be? Well, first off, Disney tends to add adult jokes. These tend to be more subtle so that children don't really notice them, or they make them in a way that children will get them on one level and adults will get them on another. For example, there's...
We're like your biggest fans! Get down!
Foot size?
Foot size doesn't matter. Well, I think you need to be more flexible.
Are you doing anything later?
We desire children.
Hey, that may take me a couple of tries, but I don't think that'd be a problem. I'll point up.
You're on our honeymoon.
Bless you for coming out in public.
A lot of Disney films attempt to touch on or focus on adult themes and concepts. For example, The Incredibles plays upon the idea of an Andoran form of individualism, and the harm and damage that can come from a world that tries to stifle that by attempting to make everyone equal through a YMCA mentality, that nobody is better than anybody at a specific task or skill, that we all deserve a trophy, that we're all special snowflakes. Get out of here, Jeffrey! The Incredibles also plays around with the idea of affairs and how that affects a marriage. Zootopia focuses on the idea of racial discrimination and minorities, and Toy Story 3 is about the concept of getting older and leaving childhood behind. And the list goes on. And it's just from these two things that Disney animated films are already more adult than a lot of other adult films are. So if Disney can be subtle about these things and succeed and create movies that gross in the millions in income, why can't most adult films? Well, again, Disney films are aimed towards children up front, but attempt to appeal to adults on the side. Something that helps perpetuate the success of each film by creating a sense of enjoyment for all, making return viewings all the more possible, either through the theater or by accessing the film in the home. In contrast, adult films are just attempting to aim at adults, and because they're only hitting a middle school to high school demographic through their humor, the chance of repeated viewings only becomes less and less frequent as time goes on. Like, who in this world honestly owns a copy of We're the Millers and watches it frequently? Should have been called Remember the Millers. Like, seriously, whoever remembered this movie came out in 2013? Disney films are also pretty self-aware. They understand the conventions they played upon in the past and understand they can easily play off those same conventions in unique and interesting ways. This is why Frozen got so popular. Both are creating interesting songs that are easily some of the catchiest Disney's ever produced, as well as the fact that a lot of Frozen is a parody of the Disney formula. Love at first sight, true love's first kiss, the damsel in distress, incest. However, a lot of adult shows and films don't really have this luxury. Many of them are new ideas in the Max Landis sense, that they aren't based off of another property such as a TV series or a book or a comic. They have to prove they're adult off the bat. They don't have anything to rely on outside of what they're presenting up front, which causes a lot of films to take this broad lens of adulthood in order to prove to both studios and audiences alike that this movie or show is for adults. Take the South Park movie, for example. We as a culture already understand what South Park is. We know it's a cartoon that can get pretty raunchy, but takes delight in making political and social statements through its bizarre humor and colorful cast of characters. Now, had this movie been the first thing that come out of the South Park name, it'd likely just be like every other adult property. South Park's humor in its earliest episodes honestly isn't much to write home about. A lot of it comes from the idea of, hey look, kids swearing, isn't that funny?
Sometimes I swear.
Nobody cares about you, Jeffrey! Hellenbach, on the other hand, doesn't have the luxury of being able to fall back on people's knowledge on a prior property. True, Hellenbach was made by the same people who do Robot Chicken, but Robot Chicken is nowhere near the cultural powerhouse South Park has become. Nor is it anything like Hellenbach in its structure as a story. Robot Chicken is a bunch of random sketches, with some being good and others being pretty bad, whereas Hellenbach is a full-on narrative. In a world where new IPs are honestly discouraged, it isn't hard to see why adult animations in particular would try so hard to prove they're for adults, especially when they have the extra stigma of cartoons being for kids blocking their momentum. However, just look overseas to our friends over in Japan, and this whole ordeal doesn't really seem as much of a problem.
Actually, Japan tends to be a pretty xenophobic nation. I don't know if we could really call them friends.
Oh, look at me! I'm Jeffrey, and I know everything. Did I ask for your opinion, Jeffrey? Did I? God. Why are you literally the worst? But Japan is known for releasing animated series and movies that aim towards adult audiences. And I'm not just talking about the Boku no Pico way either. Japan's catalog of animation is filled to the brim with material aimed towards adult audiences. Evangelion, Cowboy Bebop, which had a rated R movie, Paprika, Akira, Ghost in the Shell, and the list goes on. So there's proof that it's possible for animation to create tales and stories that are made for an adult audience. A real adult audience, but we still don't really see a lot of that in our own culture's animations. or at least ones are aimed towards a wide release either in theaters or on television. So we know the problem with adult animation, that it tends to aim at too wide of an audience. The humor tends to miss the mark on hitting adults, but does appeal to teens and preteens. Exists in a climate that feels that animation is for children, doesn't understand what being an adult actually is, and tries too hard to prove it's an adult in a world where new IPs are discouraged. If we know the problem and we understand the problem, then how do we solve it? Well, the biggest problem is easily the current state of the US's entertainment industry and how animation IPs are treated. So if there's any hope to change that, films are gonna have to come out that are able to challenge this concept, both by being an adult and being able to make a profit desirable of studios. And for that to start, there has to be a catalyst. And to be honest, Sausage Party might be just that. The Sausage Party look good? No, not in the slightest. But it's a movie that's being talked about. As ridiculous as that may seem, people recognize Sausage Party. The fact that Seth Rogen's name is attached to the film already has people interested in the prospect of the movie. If Sausage Party does well, studios and people alike might honestly be willing to take a look at animation and decide that maybe it can appeal to adults. Or maybe it won't. Maybe things will just get worse. I don't know. Heck, I don't even know how to end a video.